When creating my iPad magazine, each page was designed and built with the help of assets I created in other programs and then imported into InDesign to create the final interactive magazine. When saving these assets, I had to select the file extensions that suited the asset and its purpose within the magazine. These file extensions save the assets in different formats such as PSD, AI, and InDesign raw files. As these are raw files, they are editable, so that changes can be made and updated within the asset while it may be in use within the magazine, while others are just raster or vector images that represent the assets created. These formats include JPEG and PNG, or possibly even a PDF. We use these different extensions to enable the assets to be used in different ways within our magazine. An example of this would be when I created a gaming video for my magazine. I exported this from Premiere as a .mp4 file, as this meant it could be played as a video within my digital magazine. If I were to have saved it as a Premiere file, which would be .prproj, as I have edited it in Premiere, then it would not play as a video because it's just the editable raw file. And this shows that the file extensions matter extremely when creating an iPad magazine. Vector images, as opposed to raster images, use points and lines to create and display an image rather than raster, which uses individual pixels with color to collate together to form an image. As vector images do not use pixels, they give a much clearer resolution of an image and do not decrease in quality as you zoom in on an image. Raster images, on the other hand, use pixels rather than lines to display the image, and this means that they can be lower quality than vector images. Within the Adobe Creative Suite, I would use Photoshop to create these raster images. For example, when I wanted to create my front cover for my iPad magazine, I wanted it to have a slightly pixelated look. So I created it in Photoshop and exported it as a high quality PNG file, so that the clear area around the cover was removed. But when I imported it into InDesign, it still had a slightly pixelated look, but wasn't low in quality. With raster images, you can set Photoshop up to use RGB or CMYK colors. RGB is for when the image will be used on the web or just on computers in general. This means that it would only use the colors red, green, and blue. However, if you were going to print the article, which we wouldn't do in an iPad magazine, but let's say I was creating a normal magazine, then CMYK is used for print, as it stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and keen, which is black. This allows the colors to resemble what it would on a print page on the computer. So when you're coloring something on the magazine, the colors aren't distorted in any way. They appear exactly how they would appear on the finished article. In terms of image capture, as my iPad magazine was a gaming magazine, a lot of my original imagery was in-game screenshots of me playing different games and reviewing them. I also made original commented videos of gameplay that I created through screen recording that gameplay. I personally used Fraps, but there are other softwares like QuickTime. However, I still wanted some original imageries of real-life shots. I used my phone camera, as my phone can film and take pictures at 1080p and film with 60 frames per second. This obviously wasn't entirely needed, but this also meant that the quality was more than good enough for my magazine. After taking the photos, I then connected my phone to my computer via USB to move the images onto my computer and use them within my magazine. If I were to take these images off of a DSLR camera, I would have simply removed the SD card from the camera and placed it into the Mac and imported the images that way.
When creating my iPad magazine, I used multiple different softwares within the Adobe Creative Suite, and outside of it to make all the necessary parts of my magazine, whether it be editing a video within Premiere and exporting it as a video into InDesign, or to create artwork or design within Photoshop. When it comes to workflow, the Adobe Creative Suite allows ease of movement between all of the software, that anything I create outside of InDesign can be easily imported and used as it was intended. As shown here, I have created my front cover artwork for my iPad magazine. This is to go into InDesign with the purpose of being the background of my cover, with the text from InDesign overlaid on top. I used Photoshop to create this, as it allowed me to use filters as well as let me use edit the images to suit the style of my magazine. I then save this as a PNG file and import it into InDesign. This is simple as it has no interactive features, it will just be placed as an image in the background. On the other hand, something more complex that I've created for my magazine is this gameplay video. I recorded the gameplay using Fraps, a popular screen recording program. This automatically saves as an MP4 file when I am finished recording, which I then import into Premiere to edit. After I have finished editing the video, I export it as an MP4 again, this time compressing it with an H.264 video codec to reduce its file size without reducing the video quality. I then simply drag it into InDesign and it will work and play as a video as my InDesign file is set up via digital publishing. I didn't use Illustrator during the creation of my magazine, as I was looking for a slightly pixelated look, which the vector images from Illustrator do not have, as they do not use pixels, they only use lines. When saving the assets and InDesign files, I saved them into my personal U drive and organised them in a way that was easy to relocate. Each page was saved in a separate folder, and within the folder are two separate versions of the pages. One was vertical and one was horizontal. This is the necessary structure for the folio builder, as it will not be able to read the files unless they are laid out in this way. In addition to this, they need to have an _V and _H next to the title of the page for them to be able to be located by the folio and understand it, so that when it's imported into the iPad, you can rotate it and the page rotates the same. The Folio Builder and Adobe's Content Viewer are the features used to preview the magazine within InDesign or on the iPad itself. To use this, you must create a folio, set it up, and add a preview. The Adobe Content Viewer allows for viewing of the magazine on the iPad, but you can also view it on the Mac. Once I sign into my Adobe ID, which I would have created through Adobe, I can download the magazines that I have uploaded onto the folio, and then I can share this with other people by signing in with their email addresses. When creating an interactive magazine for the iPad, there are a lot of important aspects to consider, but one of the main important aspects is the resolution requirements of the different devices that are going to be using it. For example, the iPad 3 has a resolution of 2048 by 1536 at 264 pixel per inch, or PPI. The iPhone 6, on the other hand, has a 1335 by 750 pixel resolution at 326 ppi. There is a noticeable difference between the Apple products and the Kindle Fire 7, as this has a resolution of 12,080 by 800 with a 216 ppi, which is significantly less, but still an impressive number. However, the Samsung Galaxy S6 has a resolution of 1440 by 2560. This also has a 577 ppi pixel density, which is actually a lot higher than even the iPhone 6. This also means that it has the highest resolution of the screens, which would need to be catered for when creating an iPad magazine.